Donald Trump just asked the United States Supreme Court to pause enforcement of the TikTok ban.
Whilst it is true that Donald Trump has officially asked the Supreme Court to put a halt on the TikTok ban, although we don't know if they're going to listen to that or not yet, I can't help but be cautious and suspicious with them wanting to have some sort of negotiated resolution with TikTok and the timing of the complete utter downfall that's been happening on Twitter over the last few days. Because as I've been saying, I just assumed the reason they remained so quiet on the TikTok ban is that they were gearing up for it and they were going to try and transform Twitter, right, their space, into being like the new TikTok. But you can't do that if the entire app has imploded and turned on you and your party. We need to talk about what's been happening on Twitter over the last couple of days because it has been insane. People have been slowly starting to subtly gain class consciousness, and they have entirely turned on the tech billionaires like Elon and Ramaswamy. In case you forgot, we're both recently appointed co-chairs of the made-up Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE department, who accidentally came out in public for H-1B visas, which are visas that you give for workers that you bring over and they're going to do a job here. Which highly upset all of the Red Hat boys, right? Because that goes directly against what they want to do, right? They want to remove everyone from our country. But the tech billionaires have realized, oh no, if we actually do that, we're going to have to start paying people livable wages. This is where it starts to get crazy, right? People start asking, like, are there not people here that we could give those jobs? A valid question. And Elon responds, there's a permanent shortage of excellent engineering talent, essentially calling everyone in the US not smart enough to do the jobs. So MAGA's already upset about this, and then someone points out, right, that immigration is a large part of the workforce here in the United States, and they try and run some numbers of the amount of engineers we would need by 2032, which is a crazy amount. And Elon responds, actually, the number is way higher than that. But think of this like a pro sports team. If you want your team to win the championship, you need to recruit the top talent, wherever they may be, for your team to win and for it to benefit the whole country or the team. It's a valid statement. Like, if you want your country to be a leader in things, right, you have to work with the greatest minds. But he's also essentially, once again, telling everyone who's complaining that they're all not smart enough. And then this man asks what appears to be a valid question, right? There's 330 million people in America. Surely there must be some among them that you would deem worthy enough to build your ultimate team. Elon essentially responds by calling him stupid. He says your understanding of the situation upside down and backwards. Of course, he would love to be able to hire Americans. This is not about handing out opportunities from some magical hat. You don't get it. He compares it back to NBA teams again, and then he says there are mental differences. Essentially, he's calling them, again, not smart enough. So while Elon is going on this rant about how all their supporters are not actually smart enough to do these jobs, his right-wing commentator ties it back to economics by saying if Apple can't raise compensation enough to attract domestic talent, then under free market principles, it should be allowed to fail as a company. Which again, Elon goes on to insult him and his intelligence. So at this point, it's pretty much an all-out brawl with Red Hat supporters turning on all of these tech billionaires, especially with Vivek Ramaswamy now coming into the picture on Elon's side. I'll allow you to pause to read if you're interested, but pretty much he insults Americans again, saying that there's an American IQ deficit, so we just can't fill these jobs. And of course, he starts receiving so much more backlash than Elon. And again, both of them aren't entirely wrong. Like, our country heavily relies on these sorts of visas and work. They just chose to suck up to the party that does not support them and their tech businesses. And now they are directly feeling the consequences of that. But it gets better. Out of the sewer drains crawls Laura Loomer. And I guess what they say about a broken clock being right twice a day is true, because she hits him with the best receipts I think I've ever seen. Because Elon's main defense is that the people on these visas, right, are the highest talent in the world, which is why they are essential to their companies. And so she says this is the average salary of the people who are working on those visas. Only $70K per year for this top percent of talent. How is that fair? Through the wrong paths, she correctly stumbles on the point that hardly anyone can afford to live off of that rate every year, and you're paying the most skilled workers, you think, like in the world, that amount? Now, in a weird backwards world, we have Laura Loomer going at it with Elon about workers' rights and basic compensations. And then the Scarecrow from the second Wicked movie herself took some time off from set to chime in and also concerningly make some sense. Ann Coulter came in and said, the real point they're all trying to get at, which is American workers can leave a company. Imported H-1B workers can't. Tech wants indentured servants, not high-skilled workers. Once again, there is still something very much so to be said about these types of workers. They also don't want to address the real issue, which is educating our own youth and offering fair compensation for the jobs. At this point, the argument between the red hat crowd and the billionaire crowd is getting super heated, and one of my favorite responses I must highlight was Laura Loomer reminding Elon he literally just bought his way into Donnie's crowd like 5 minutes ago, dude. Like, who do you even know here? And then in a fiercer final blow, Laura Loomer says this, which I'll let you pause to read the whole thing, but she really just highlights that, remember, Elon actually doesn't even belong here. Like, bro just showed up 2 minutes ago and thinks he runs the class now. After that deep blow, Elon went around and started removing the red hat people's check marks and kicking them out of the monetization program. Because remember, he's all about free speech, just not against him. And so many large figures have gotten in on this drama that this video could be 2 hours long, but another really important part is that another drama is happening at the same time on that platform, which is that people are finally somehow starting to realize that Don Don's plan is to take away a lot of the benefits from the lower income class of people, which is a very large part of the people who supported him into where he is today, and they are freaking out. Gee whiz, if only people had tried to warn you for like several months, repeatedly, over and over again. I'm going to do what we learned in preschool, which is I have nothing nice to say about that, so I'm just going to say nothing at all.